Okay. Okay, again, my name is Matt Wood, and I'm one of the school counselors here. And this presentation is something that the state of Ohio has us do every year to make sure students and parents are understanding the requirements for College Credit Plus. And it's a terrific opportunity, and I'm glad so many people are interested in participating in that. And we love to see that students are, excelling in their academics and hoping to, take that onto the college level. And we find that students that start with College Credit Plus in high school and are successful are extremely likely to go on to college and be more comfortable with going to college because they already had that solid start in high school doing College Credit Plus with us or their home school. So it's a terrific opportunity. So what is College Credit Plus? Students can earn high school and college credits at the same time. The credit goes on the college and high school transcripts. Students enroll in college courses and adhere to the policy requirements of the college. One thing I will throw in real quick is this slideshow is from the Ohio Department of Education. I'm going to try to skip over and move through some things quickly, and then I'll focus on some other things a little bit more. But one of the goals is not to, to dwell on anything particular too much. And some of the, like I said, I did not make this presentation. So if you feel something's redundant, I apologize. That's from our good old state of Ohio. So College Credit Plus, it can be for students in grades 7 through 12. There's various things that students have to do to become eligible for College Credit Plus, and those vary by school. We have lots of local colleges that participate in College Credit Plus, and students can apply to many colleges. They must be Ohio residents, which isn't typically a problem. We'll talk more about eligibility later, but that can differ between schools and is also changing based on the pandemic. Some of the schools around here that participate are, of course, like Columbus State, Ohio State, Central Ohio Technical College, Marion Tech, but even schools like Otterbein participate, Ohio University. You can go to other universities in the state virtually. So there's a lot of options for College Credit Plus. Obviously, generally speaking, most students are taking their courses directly with a school, either us or their home school. So our partnerships here at DACC are with Columbus State and actually the University of Findlay. And we'll talk more about the classes that we offer here in some future slides. So you can choose from a variety of college level courses. Really, it's pretty wide open with what you can take. I'll show you some examples from Columbus State on what students can take. They can take a lot of courses that aren't even offered here at DACC. There's, I'd say well over 100 courses that are in the level 1 course catalog that students can take. Again, those classes do qualify for both high school and college credit. We'll go on that conversion and show how many classes students can take here in a little bit. So students must complete the courses in order to earn credit. If a student fails the course, then that does go on their transcript, whether both here and at the university. So both the passing and the failing goes on the transcript. And there's really nothing that anybody can do if a student fails a course. It is permanent on their permanent record for their college transcript and their high school transcript. One thing that a lot of people do not realize is students, for the next series of College Credit Plus, students can actually start taking their allotment of credits starting in the summer. So, and generally the summer sessions start at the end of May for most universities. So summer, fall, then spring is the year sections of College Credit Plus. And students can take those courses embedded at the school like we have at DACC. They can go to a college campus or take them online. So students must be eligible for College Credit Plus courses, and that's based on assessment exam scores. So students The general eligibility, and I'll get into some of those exceptions here in a minute, but student scores must show they are ready for college level courses and at least one subset on an exam such as the ACT, SAT, AccuPlacer, ALEX, PlaceU, or MapleSoft. Each college or university may have different exam requirements. For instance, at Ohio State, if you're trying to get into their main campus for College Credit Plus, those requirements would be different than taking courses at, let's say, Columbus State. So the universities review the scores, and if the student scores are not college level, they can consider some other options. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a moment because things have changed a bit during the pandemic, and actually we do not quite know all the assessment requirements for next year as of this moment. Those are still in the works. And here's that slide. Due to COVID, assessment testing has been impacted during the spring of 2020. Flexibility was allowed for this year. Not all the universities have decided what that flexibility is going to look like for next year. Ohio State has, but Columbus State has not. So we'll go over that at the very end. But what that did allow is it allowed students not to have to use an ACT score or AccuPlacer or ALEX testing, or some alternative options, so that they were able to use their GPA and their grades in their classes to show that they were prepared to take those classes. And it's very likely that'll be in place for next year, but we just do not know that for certain yet. So how can students participate? So one big thing is you have to follow quite a few steps. A lot of students think they can sign up for a class with us when we do our class scheduling, and that's part of the process, but you must apply for admission into that university. If you want to take classes at Columbus State, for instance, you must do the application for Columbus State for College Credit Plus. It's a pretty simple application. It takes only about 20 minutes or so. And we'll likely in the near future be helping students that are interested in that to do that, but it's something that can easily be done by students and parents at home. Make sure that if it's a parent helping the student do that application, that the student's using their own personal email, because it is essentially the university is treating the student as an adult, so they need to be able to have direct contact with that student. You can find all the admission requirements on the college websites, which we'll give you here at the end. And if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to these universities. They have specific people that are there to help you out. So registering for courses is a bit different between, depending on how your student's going to take those courses. If they are taking, like, for instance, classes here at DACC, we will register them for those embedded classes. They don't have to fill out an additional form or anything like that with the university. After they do their application and they're accepted, when we schedule them here at school, we'll then schedule them later through the university. You do not have to do that. But let's say you wanted to take a course that was outside of what we offer, then you would have to register with the university that you choose to for that course. And we can help students and parents do that, but that's a separate thing that, students have to be responsible to do on their own. And everything has prerequisites. So by registering, by you telling us you want to take a course, we cannot necessarily say for sure that you met the prerequisites. We will work with the university on that, but that is the university's decision, and that's their final decision. So CCP courses, the goal is that they fulfill your graduation requirements and your high school requirements, or they could be extra courses that you may not need to graduate. So we'll help you understand those requirements. For instance, like your political science class that we offer here at DACC will be also covering your government course that's required by the state of Ohio. And always remember, since we're not the school that your students graduate from, every school that we work with has some different requirements. So some might have more requirements than others, and that's something that makes sure that with your own home school on what their requirements are to graduate. Course eligibility rules. So this is something that is a little bit technical, and most students and parents don't need to worry about, but we're going to talk a little bit about level 1 courses and the first 15 credits, and there's some requirements with what's allowed in those credits. But most students, it's not a very big deal because everything that we offer and everything typically students want to take is part of that level 1 credit. And so there are a few rules that you'll see here, and you can read through those. But anything that we offer and most things students want to take would be part of that. I'm going to try to pull up here. Oops. I'm going to try to pull up here a page from Columbus State that shows their, oops, nope, wrong thing. My bad. Try to pull up their page that shows those requirements, if I can find it here. Yeah, I don't see it. Sorry about that. I'll try to find it here in a minute, but it'll show there's well over 100 courses that are available at, for instance, at Columbus State that students can take beyond what we are offering. So typically anything a student would want to take is going to be offered in that first 15 credits. Certain things that are not offered are things such as some of the programs in the health field. You cannot take physical education classes or health classes there, but pretty much everything else is generally part of that and open to any student to take right now. And you'll be able to, I'm going to try to show you the posting that Columbus State has, for instance, for those schools are required to post those courses. After a student gets through 15 credit hours of college level coursework, they can move on to level 2 courses. Generally, a lot of students aren't getting too far into that. So if that's something specific for an individual student, that you can reach out to your school counselor to discuss that further, or look at the university's website to check into that more. Okay, so here's some examples of courses that are not allowed, such as study abroad, pass-fail, physical education. Students used to be able to take courses on like aviation and things like that. That's no longer allowed. They were obviously very expensive classes, and a few years back, actually, the state used to pay for those and no longer do that. So, or religious courses as well. Okay, so what are other requirements? So whatever the student receives in the college course, that's going to be reflected on their home school's high school transcript. The schools have to put the exact same course, and they'll be factored into the high school and college GPAs. Generally speaking, all of our partner schools, they weight the GPA of the college course. So typically that's weighted on a 5-point scale. So it's going to give a student a higher GPA if they're taking a college course. So that's an important factor for some students to be taking college courses to raise that GPA. They can also get a weighted grade if they're taking things such as AP courses typically. And there you go. There's some other examples of other courses that are weighted. Sometimes schools also weight honors classes, but not all of our partner schools do that. So other things that students should be looking at, they should be looking at things that are going to help them down the road. If they're going to go to a college down the road, what courses are going to be something that are likely things that they're going to need to take later in leading towards a major or a degree. So again, students can take classes that satisfy graduation requirements, and you should obviously work with your school counselor on that. So this is a really important slide here. So if everybody could focus on this. So students are allowed to take up to 30 credits per year for a combination of high school classes and college credit plus or college classes. And so this gives you the calculation of what that looks like. So for instance, a high school class that we have at DACC, for instance, a career tech class, each credit of that class counts as 3 credits. So for instance, all of our career tech programs are 3 credits. So you multiply that by 3 and you get 9. So a student is then left with 21 credits of high school classes or college classes. And so each college class can count as a different amount of credits as well. So a different amount of credit hours. So one thing that, and this typically does not matter for most students if they're taking the standard CCP classes that we offer at DACC, but if students are taking additional courses beyond what we offer, students need to make sure that they do not go over that 30 credit hour limit. And they can, what you should do if you think you might be in that situation next year, you can work with your school counselor to make sure you don't go over that amount. Or on the flip side, let's say you end up at 32 credit hours, you will have to pay out of your own pocket for those additional credit hours at the rate that the university requires. So, and you can only do 120 credit hours for a whole 4 years, which we never have an issue with. And here you go. So again, you either can pay for the course, or you can drop the course if you go over that 30 credit hours. And that's an option if you do not want to pay. What are the differences between high school and college? Obviously, I think a lot of you know a lot about this, so I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly. But one thing that we do want to make sure students understand and parents understand is that sometimes parents want a student to take a college class, but maybe a student is not ready to take it. Maybe they're academically and mentally ready to take it, but maybe emotionally and maturity-wise, they're not ready to take it. So every year we have students that obviously do really well in these college classes, but we also have some students that do not do well, and a small number, but the students have to be ready mature-wise to do that. And they risk, if they're not really prepared, if they're not really into it, they risk that of getting a failing grade, and that goes on that permanent transcript for college and high school. So there are risks with taking college classes. So making sure that your student is really prepared to do that, and that if they're not, when next fall comes around, that we do have comparable high school classes for them to take, and so they do not have to take the college option if they're truly not ready to do that. So obviously with tests, there's typically maybe more quizzes and tests, but the college class tests are usually obviously cover a lot more material and a lot more difficult. Teachers are not necessarily giving a lot of clues on what might be on those exams. Study time. They say here that required homework for high school is about 1 to 3 hours per day. For college, the standard rule is 2 to 3 hours of homework for every hour spent in class. So that could be up to 3 to 5 hours per day for a class. And some of our classes, if students want to do really well, there's a lot of reading to do to really have a solid chance of getting an A. So students really need to be prepared to do all that reading, take those notes during both the reading time and the lecture time, and be prepared to study it. And a lot of students that do really well in high school classes don't really have very good study habits. They're very intelligent and very smart, but they can do well in high school classes because of that, and they haven't really learned those study skills. So when they take the college classes, we really need them to be prepared to actually do that studying. And knowledge acquisition. Again, most of the information is given in class, and in college, students might have to figure that out on their own. They have to do that independent thinking. They have longer writing assignments and out-of-class research. The teachers are not going to spoon-feed them that information as much. And grading. Of course, there's fewer tests generally, and very few homework assignments. For college, generally the grades are going to be based on a few tests, some major papers, and final exams. And high school, as you guys, students and parents know from our Power School, checking that out, students can have an assignment every single day. So there's tons of assignments, and if they do bad on one assignment, it's easy to make that up by doing better in a lot of other things. In college, one bad assignment can tank your grade. And the role of the parent. This is a big challenge for parents. I've been working with some parents on this recently. you as a parent do not have any rights to your student's college class. You cannot reach out to the teacher. You do not have access to their grades in the system. Students can sign off for some rights for the parent for that, but the teacher, for instance, if the student's failing, is not going to reach out to you. They're not going to necessarily reach out to us as school counselors. So that's a big change in what the role of parents typically are with their students, where they're alerted, teachers reach out. That doesn't happen with college classes, and so that's a big major difference. Students have to self-advocate themselves and learn to work with their professors. So, and then as far as accommodations, with students that have IEPs and 504 plans, we have quite a few students on IEPs and 504 plans that take college classes. And so they have the same equal opportunity to take CCP classes as what any student has. So if students want to have that 504 plan or IEP reviewed by the university, that has to go directly to the university in their Office of Disability Services. For instance, Columbus State, if our students that are taking classes with Columbus State here on our campus, our teachers cannot give, even though they're DACC teachers, cannot give them their accommodations unless they are approved by the university. So that is a bit different than what students are used to that have accommodations here at DACC. So that's a good question to talk to your students, teachers, and other people to kind of discuss, are there any barriers potentially if a student wants to take a class like that, if they are using their accommodations. I'm going to take a drink here. And obviously a big great thing about this is getting that head start on college, getting those college credits paid for free. The books are paid for, the classes are paid for. I have a few students this year, one I'm thinking of in particular that, she is going to have nearly a whole year of college classes completed by her graduation this year. So it's super exciting. It's going to pay a lot of dividends for that student down the road. And even if you're not getting that many classes, even if you're only getting one or two, it's giving that early college experience so you understand what it's going to take to be successful in college, and that students can understand that they can do it, and it gives them that confidence when they go to college that they've already done it before. So when they get there, they won't be so concerned about that. So it's a terrific way to get that jump start. So some consequences of underperforming, and we'll talk a little bit about this now. And this is always the most challenging thing as a school counselor. Often with students that are underperforming, we don't know as well for a while. Sometimes we can get alerts from the universities or the teachers, but sometimes, students are struggling and we don't get that access to that information as well. So there are some significant consequences to underperforming in a college class. Obviously, we already talked about things going on both the transcripts of both high school and college. But even if a student withdraws from a course late, they're going to get something called a W, which stays permanently on that student's record. And a W we can require students have to reimburse their tuition if they get a W or an F, or Columbus State calls them E's. If students get a W, F, or E, we can require that the student reimburses the school, or homeschools if they're paying for it, can require that. So obviously underperforming goes on the record, but it also can be a financial strain on the family. And also, if a student fails or withdraws too often, it negatively affects their financial aid in the future. With a student's financial aid, like through FAFSA, typically more than 2 W's on a transcript can lower their financial aid, because the student down the road, their CCP does affect their financial aid. So too many W's basically shows that you're not successfully following through with what you planned on your courses. So it does hurt you down the road. We do have probation and dismissal, and there's things that we do related to that, and there's also things related to the university for that, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. So a student will be placed on CCP probation if they earn less than a 2.0 in CCP courses, so you have to have a C or better, or withdrawals from more than 2 courses during an academic term. So if a student's on probation, they may only enroll in 1 additional course in that following term, and they may not go into that same course that they took the D, the F, or the no grade in. So if a student fails, let's say English 1100, then they cannot take then the next semester English 1100 and try to get a passing grade. That wouldn't be an option. CCP dismissal. If a student on probation does not increase their GPA to above the 2.0 during the probation term, they will be dismissed from CCP. They cannot take any additional courses, and they can eventually request an appeal to be reinstated into the program. I'll say I've not had to have any students dismissed, as far as I remember, from CCP, but students have come close. And here's the appeals process. I'll let you guys look at that more if you would like to later. So what are the expenses for College Credit Plus? If it's a public university and costs, there will be no costs for tuition, fees, or books. At private universities, if you would try to take a class, for instance, at Otterbein, there could be an additional cost above what the state pays for that credit hour. So that's something to keep in mind if you are considering that. And there could be some optional expenses as well for parking, transportation, and other things. If you're taking classes here at DACC in an embedded course, there are not any fees ever for those courses. So a couple things to make sure that you don't have expenses for CCP. So letters of intent or intent to participate forms, those are required to be signed and returned to student services here at DACC by April 1st. I emailed those forms out to parents yesterday. I will email those out again, and I will provide those to students in the coming days as well. What that intent to participate basically does is it does not require you to take a college course, and it does not give you permission to take a college course. It's basically telling the school and the state that you have an interest in taking that course, and that if you take that course, that you would like us to pay for that course typically. Most students and parents do not want to pay for the course themselves, and there's 2 options that you choose. Do you want to pay for it yourself, or do you want us and the state to pay for it? And obviously everybody's going to pick that option. And so make sure that you complete that form by April 1st. Again, you can, it's a simple form. So even if you're not sure if you're going to take College Credit Plus courses yet, you think you might take it, then go ahead and do the form. There's no harm, there's no requirement if you do the form to take college classes next year. So here are the options. Option A is going to be a self-pay option again, that where you are not, that you're saying that you are going to pay for the courses. And typically the only reason somebody would want to do that typically is if they want to take additional classes over the 30 credit hours. And then there's option B, and that's when the school and the state of Ohio are going to be paying for those fees and tuition. So obviously everybody will be selecting option B when you do that form. Okay, so what are the supports for students that are participating? So you're still gonna, if you need to talk to somebody here about the course or have concerns, you can still come to your high school counselor, talk to your teacher. You can also, though, reach out to the university, to their advisors, if you want to talk about additional classes that are available. You You can also have access to tutoring, libraries, counseling services. For instance, Columbus State has mental health counseling as well that students can get access to. Tutoring and things has changed a little bit, but it's a great option for students. I would highly recommend students, even if they're taking an English class, for instance, to utilize the tutoring services at Columbus State. They can have somebody read their paper, go over it with them, and hopefully, make a better paper so they can get an improved grade. So there's lots of options that universities offer for students that are taking classes. So this is a slide for students that think that they that are athletes here during high school. So it's important to know that these classes typically are no problem for eligibility requirements. But if you're taking CCP classes, you should be working with your athletic director from your home school to make sure they know that you're taking those courses, and make sure that you're going to be eligible for the following semester or quarter that you're in your sport. I have seen students that have made some errors with this before, and they have been ineligible, but it's something that is, doesn't happen too often. And if you're taking our courses and our technical program along with some of these classes, then you're typically easily eligible for sports. But again, you see below that summer term College Credit Plus courses can't be used to get into compliance. So make sure you work with your athletic departments and your home schools if you have any questions on that. So this is a question that we always have from students and parents. So if I take a class at Columbus State or the University of Findlay, once I go to another university, let's say I go to Cincinnati, Ohio State, will my credits transfer over? And typically what I tell people is that yes, they typically do transfer, especially the courses that we offer, like for instance, like English 1100, English 2367, political science. Those courses usually have no problem at all transferring to any public university in Ohio. They have a transfer portal that allows that to be pretty seamless. And you can see the transfercredit.ohio.gov. That's a way to get extra information on that and to make sure like classes will transfer. Then we also, for certain classes like the University of Findlay, we offer calculus and some additional classes through them. Those classes typically do not have a problem as well overall, but we cannot guarantee that every university will transcribe that credit the same way as the university that you took it from. And they may accept the credit, but it may not be exactly the same course. And it could even depend on the department within the university that you're going to. Like for instance, at Ohio State, they may not, in a computer science department, they may not transfer a credit that you took into their program, but the College of Science may transfer that credit. So each department within a university sometimes has different requirements as well. So we cannot guarantee all those are always going to be transferred, but the general rule of thumb is that they do. And actually, I'll go back to that slide one more time. If you're going outside the state of Ohio, each university, again, can have their own rules. Again, generally, courses do transfer pretty well, but some universities, they do not. So you have to be prepared for that if you're going out of state, especially that there could be some issues with that. But generally, that's not a major issue, but it could be. So always know that there's no guarantee that everything will transfer. So what does it mean to be college ready? It's more than just being academically ready, and I hit that a little bit earlier. Consider the emotional and social transition to college. Consider the time management and organizational skills. And that emotional, that maturity level to be college ready is really critical. typically in our classes that are embedded at the school, that helps a lot of students that might be on the border to be ready to be able to handle that, because they have access to their teachers. They're here at school, so it's more normal for them. Obviously, going onto a campus is a little bit more of a challenge for that maturity, but when they're taking them in our setting, it typically helps them out, even if they're on the borderline. But obviously, making sure that each individual student is prepared is critical. Again, we went all over all this already. Everything's in both your transcripts for high school and college. And if you make mistakes on this, it can be calculated into your future financial aid after high school. So the deadlines. You must complete and return those intent to participate forms to student services as soon as possible. I would just say do that, next week if you can, so that you don't forget. But April 1st is the deadline for that. So getting those in as soon as possible. What that also does is it kind of alerts your school counselor that you're interested in that. So it makes sure that we're doing that follow-up as well to make sure if you decide to take the classes that we make sure you've done your application, that you qualify for the courses and such, so that you don't miss out. A lot of you that are on this call right now are going to be taking the ACT with us or your homeschool or the SAT in the next couple weeks. So that's a great opportunity, obviously, to learn about the ACT and get a good score, but you can utilize that on the requirements to take classes at Columbus State or other universities that you might choose to meet those minimum requirements. And you'll see some of that here in a minute. We'll show some slides that show that. And you're also responsible for deadlines. So if you're, we can assist with that, but we can't be responsible that you didn't know that you had to do your application by May 1st for Ohio State if you wanted to go there, or for Columbus State. We're telling you have to do that application. So it is college, so you're responsible to do that application. So making sure that you don't miss those deadlines. And we typically don't have any major issues with that, but every year, there's students that don't do things early and kind of can get into that last minute rush to get those done. So again, getting started, doing that intent to participate, applying for admission into those colleges that you're interested in taking CCP with. You have to do the Columbus State if you're taking any Columbus State classes. If you're taking classes through the University of Findlay with us, you will do an application with us here at school. So you do not need to go to the University of Findlay's website and do that on your own. You will do that with us here at DACC. If you have any questions about requirements, asking that. And again, those requirements aren't all known yet, so I wouldn't super worry about that. But the best rule of thumb is just to do the best you can in your current classes, and then hopefully we'll get that eligibility information out soon. And meeting with us if you have questions. Okay, if you have additional questions, then here's the website for the state of Ohio. So take a look at that. There's a lot of great resources on there and a lot of things that can get answered further. On this slide, I have the most popular schools that students typically do with College Credit Plus. So you'll see obviously Columbus State, Ohio State, Marion Technical College, and Central Ohio Technical College. Those websites will give you additional information about their options and how to, for instance, Columbus State, how to get to their application. The Columbus State application, it's what I will say is there's a pink apply button on pretty much every page of the Columbus State website at the very top. You click that pink apply button and you go to click the College Credit Plus application, and that's how you get started. So I'm going to go over a few things from our university partners. They all sent us, or a couple of them sent us information that they wanted you to see. Again, you are going to get copies of all these slides that I'm going to email you here in the coming days. So you'll get all this information. So you don't need to be writing all this down. But so just make sure you know that you have, we'll have this information. So for Ohio State, if you want to do any courses through them, the application deadline is May 1st this year. There are obviously some benefits for taking your classes at Ohio State. You know, they are the Ohio State University classes. They're the same that you would take either on Columbus campus or regional campuses. You can apply to either. Regional campuses are open enrollment, and but in the Columbus campus is a selective application. So you do not, by applying, get automatic admission to take classes on the main campus. We don't have a lot of students that try to do that, but if you have any specific questions on that, come and see us and we'll help you out with that. Here's a little slide about OSU Marion. For most students, that's the closest campus. OSU Newark, for some other students, is closer. So if you are interested in taking classes through one of the regional campuses, there is not a competitive admission. You have to just meet the minimum standards to get into the school, and you're into those schools and can take courses through Ohio State. And here are the slides for Columbus State, kind of going over what their eligibility rules as well. So students do the application, meet the eligibility requirements, and then hopefully when you take the ACT or SAT with your home school or us, you'll meet those minimum requirements, which you're going to see here on the right, the eligibility scores, and then you get to enroll in your courses. Again, these eligibility scores may not be final. There likely could be some adjustments that we're waiting on with Columbus State, but you'll see here these ACT scores. You have to have an 18 in English, a 22 in reading, and a 22 in math to meet the requirements for Columbus State courses. For instance, like a college English 1100 course, you only have to meet the requirements for the English and the reading, not for the math. You can also, you'll see down here the options for the AccuPlacer. Those are also options to meet those requirements. Here's the course eligibility, meeting those prerequisites. There might be some additional prerequisites, for instance, for like a chemistry class that you have to meet those minimum requirements. And here's some benefits for Columbus State to be taking college classes. One thing that Columbus State does, they do have some scholarships. If you take 2 college classes through them directly or through our embedded classes, you can sometimes get a $500 bonus scholarship through them, but there's also some additional options. So meet with your counselor if you have any questions, and apply to Columbus State if you're planning on taking those courses. Deadlines, I'm not sure their exact deadline. I don't think they have an exact deadline to do that application, but like with everything else I'm talking about, the sooner the better. And if you want to learn more, you can go to their website to learn more. And here's our final slide for tonight. Here's our contact information for Ms. Fissel, for myself, and Ms. Cox. If you are not sure which counselor is your student's counselor, I put the programs here. So if you need to send us an email, you can send it to that counselor directly. And I know we went over a lot of information. And again, I am going to send all this out to you again. So make sure that if you're just asking for that type of stuff, that'll come out here soon. But if you have specific questions, we're super happy to talk to you about those. And always here